This is the second part of this two-part series for military relocation, and we pick up where we left off last week. We'll cover all about the HHT, the envelopes, and get you as much money as you can. If cash is something that you're interested in, well, keep listening. Okay, so last week we talked about the steps you need to take when getting posted. So if you haven't seen this part, I suggest you go and see it too. You can simply click on the corner here to access it, and it will be linked at the end of this video. Let's dive right into it. The HHT. Do you get one? Well, that's a good question to start with. You can look up Chapter 4 of the Relocation Directive to make sure that you do get one. Basically, if you haven't secured accommodation where you move, you are eligible for an HHT. And by secured, I mean having signed documentation to that effect. Don't rely on the promise of a PMQ or that you're high on the list. This is bullshit. If you do have a place lined up, then you're entitled to a DIT instead, which is Destination Inspection Trip. Those are 5 days instead of the 7 days given for a regular HHT. While you can bring your family on HHT, the DIT is for one person only. It gives you an opportunity to inspect your accommodation and start arranging schooling, look around the neighborhoods, etc. In both cases, you'll need the authorization of the commanding officer. You can find the official form in the documents section on the BGRS platform. And by the way, releasing members needs to have this form filled out too. Okay, some facts about the HHT here real quick. Standard HHT is 5 days, 5 days on location, and 2 days travel back and forth. An extended HHT can add up to 4 days to your HHT. You can also add leaves to your HHT, but these days won't be reimbursed. And although unlikely to happen, some members require multiple HHTs. If it's your case, I suggest you to talk to a BGRS agent. Okay, let's put together your HHT battle plan. Okay, so once you have decided what dates you want for your house hunting trip, you can start the planning. If the distance between your origin and destination point exceeds 599 kilometers, you will be expected to fly. And if you fly, you must book your trip to BGRS. They don't actually book your trip, they review your request and then send it to Hogg Robinson Group or HRG, who will book the trip and send you your itinerary. If the distance is over 599 kilometers and you want to drive your personal vehicle, you can. But you will only be reimbursed for one travel day, and your travel cost will be capped at the cost of the plane ticket you would have used. If your destination is under 599 kilometers, you can do round trips for multiple days during the week. You will be able to claim kilometric allowance, but not the accommodation, obviously. You have to find your own accommodation on your HHT and DIT, whether it's booking an hotel, Airbnb, or staying with a relative. For hotels and Airbnbs, there's a rate limit by city that you can find on BGRS. You can stay with relatives or friends, and you're entitled $50 per night if it's the case. So it's common practice to put together a budget of your planned expenses on your HHT or DIT and to request an advance for funds 2 weeks prior. The funds are usually deposited in your account in around 5 to 7 business days. What expenses can you claim? If you use your own vehicle, mileage back and forth from your destination as well as local mileage. If you fly to HHT, car rental, the size will be dictated by family size, fuel cost, parking cost. Then lodging. You'll need itemized receipts, also name and address of the business, number of night and type of accommodation. Then you have the meal allowance, which is $91.50 per day per person. If your hotel has breakfast, you're still entitled to the full amount. And incidental allowance can only be claimed once per day per family. Side note for rental cars, make sure the receipt is complete, accurate, and comprehensible. Also verify that it's an actual receipt and not a cost estimate. Then you have some other covered costs. You're bound to encounter some more expenses that falls between the crack here and there. Let's go over those real quickly. You have travel to and from the airport with receipts, generally like taxi or Uber. Long-term parking and kilometric allowance if you use your personal vehicle to go to the airport. You also have dependent care, and this is a big one that can get confusing. Dependent care means care that is in excess of what you usually pay. Essentially, if you can't claim the normal cost of daycare, but you can claim whatever is in excess of that due to your HHT. You can claim $75 with a receipt and $35 without. The care must be provided by an individual who provides dependent care as a regular source of income and does not reside with the family. You can bring a third party to your home to provide dependent care. Then you have phone, fax, and internet that used to be reimbursed back in the days before everyone had a cell phone. Now it's almost always ineligible. Only real exception is if you encounter international phone charges or something similar. Lastly, pet care is another expense that is almost always ineligible. It is funded by the personal funding and most members don't have access to it. Okay, I know a lot of information is being thrown at you here. I have a guide with all that information. For those of you who want it, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. Since we're here, let's drop a like right there and jump to the second part of this, the easy funding envelope. Of course, I use a quotation mark around the word easy to accentuate my sarcasm, because honestly, it is frustrating at best, and at worst, it will probably make you want to put your head through a wall. So let's try to avoid that and demystify what the envelopes are and how to use them. Basically, the envelopes refer to different sources of funding for all eligible expenses incurred during your posting. There are 3 different envelopes. You got the core, custom, and personalized. According to definition by the relocation directive, the core envelope is for things deemed essential by the CAF to relocation. The custom one is for things that are enhancement to your relocation, and the personalized one is for things non-essential but attributable to your relocation. Canadian Forces Integration. The Canadian Forces Integrated Relocation Program, or CFRIP, designed the envelope to limit the money you spend out of pocket, but also to prevent members from taking advantage of those benefits. Okay, let's start with the core. To keep it simple, if an expense must be paid to the majority of members when they are posted, it is more likely a core expense. Here's a quick list of what would be a core expense. You got your house hunting trip, or you got your travel to new location days. You have the registration for primary motor vehicle and switching driver's license, home inspection, home appraisal, real estate agent fees, lawyers and notary fees, etc. If you wonder who's paying for this, and you probably don't as long as it's not you, well, it's the CAF. There is no limit on the amount of core expense you incur, but some expenses have caps. As an example, like I said previously, hotels have a city rate that must be respected if you want to get fully reimbursed. Another example would be respecting the amount of travel days you get. Going over what you are entitled to will result in having to pay for those extra days yourself. Okay, the custom envelope now. The confusing thing about the custom envelope is that it's divided in 2 different elements. You have custom expenses and custom benefits. Custom expenses are most likely incurred by every member, but the amount you'll get will be customized to your situation. There are 3 things on which the CAF bases your funding. The cost of disposing your residence at origin, also called the home disposition allowance. Fees like leasing, lease breaking penalty, the cost of realtor, etc. make up for most of the category. The custom funding formula calculates these costs and credit your own custom envelope 35% of that amount. Then you have the cost of moving your household goods and effects. That is specifically why they ask you how many qualifying rooms you have in your house. They use that number to calculate your custom funding, and you get 35% of that amount as well. And lastly, you have the cost of moving to your new home, which is called travel allowance. They multiply the distance in kilometers by the kilometric rate, and you get, you've guessed it, 35% of that amount. Custom benefits, on the other hand, are more or so tailored to your specific situation. For example, if you drive your car to your new home, this expense would be reimbursed by the core envelope. But what if you have a second car that needs to be transported there? Well, you obviously shouldn't pay for this, so the funds will come from the custom envelope. Other expenses covered by the custom one would be expenses that go over the core limit. Example, if you go to an extended HHT, the core would cover the first 7 days, and over that, it would come for the custom funding. And then finally, you have the personalized envelope. The personal funding envelope, which is almost never used anymore. The reason being that when they eliminated most monetary incentives, there was just not much use for it. They kept the real estate incentive, which is a big one, but that's pretty much it. The movement grant, which is a $650 allowance to offset, various losses and expenses incurred, but not specifically provided for, is now directly deposited in your bank account. But it used to be in a personal envelope. That basically means that most member envelope will be empty. So there you have it. It's an easy to follow, quick guide to make your posting go as smoothly as possible. I still strongly suggest that you read the sections that pertains to your situation in the relocation directive, just so you become even more familiar with the whole process. Also, it would account for any adjustments made to the procedure since the release of this very video, whenever you're watching this. I was still doing my research for this video, but I still wouldn't want you to miss out on anything. So this is what I have for you guys. There's obviously more to it than that, but now you have a way better understanding of the whole thing. This is meant to help as many military members as possible, so please, by all means, share this with your coworkers that are getting posted. I'm located in Ottawa personally, so for those of you being posted here, don't hesitate to text or call so we can set you up right. Thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell. I'll see you all next week.